we are. Today is September the 30th, 2020. And this is a version of the virtual seniors lunch. Sometimes we have the seniors lunch in person. And we're looking at doing a partnership this season where if people want to attend the seniors lunch in person and aren't able to because of the amount of people, if there's an overflow based on how people have to be separated out for social distancing, then folks will have the option to attend virtually via Zoom like we are today. And if we end up sort of in and out of lockdown where sometimes there's a lunch planned and it has to be canceled, then we can do the virtual option as well. So we're going to play with that idea this year between the Senior Safety Program and the Health Center. So I'm excited about that. And here today for our seniors lunch, our speaker is Blair Gallop. And I'm excited to have him with us, especially after we were just chatting about the debate last night in the United States. So politics is on my brain today. And so I'm glad to be able to spend some time with someone who knows a lot more about elections than I do. And Peggy is going to go ahead and introduce Blair. If we have anyone join us, I'll simply let them in.
Blair Gallop is the returning officer for Victoria County. He's been involved in 3 provincial elections, 2 as the assistant returning officer, and the federal election last October. He will also be the returning officer for Victoria Lakes in the next provincial election. He's a resident of Sydney and grew up in Neches Creek. Blair.
Well, thank you very much. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to get to talk about elections. It's something that I really enjoy doing. It's a great way to take part of the political process, but not have to get into all of the politics and party lines and stuff like that. So my role is basically to run a fair and smooth election. So I'm the guy in charge. So if there's something wrong, that's me. I did it. So,
well, that's kind of the opposite of an average politician right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah. So I have to organize, plan out the election. I deal with all of the candidates who are running. Anybody who's going to be working on election day, I hire them, I train them, and then at the end of the night, I'm the guy who reports all of the results. And once we have tabulated everything, we figure out who the winner is, and get them set up to run in council.
Cool. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about what the experience of the voter is this year, if it's different than other years, or I'm sure if we had guests, there'd be a lot of questions about really particulars. So maybe if you could describe that in as much detail as possible.
Yeah, so voting this year is very different from most. So this year, the municipality has decided to go completely electronic. So you're going to be voting by telephone and by internet. There are no paper ballots in any way, shape, or form. So what'll happen is that you'll get a letter in the mail, just as you usually do. And those letters have started arriving in mailboxes now. So go check it. All right. If you haven't gotten your letter, go check it because it's probably sitting there. If it hasn't arrived, give it another couple of days. And if you don't get one, please call us here at the Victoria County Returning Office. And that number is going to be 902-295-3658. All right. And you'll get a hold of probably me, all right, and we'll be able to add you onto the list. So in voting by telephone and by internet, it saves you from having to go pretty much anywhere. You can vote from home. You can sit in your lazy boy, right? You can vote from the phone in the hallway or in the kitchen, right? Or out on the back deck, wherever. So there's no waiting in lines. There's no wondering if the polls are open. There's no rushing. right? So you can get to do this at your own convenience. So if, for some reason you're up late at night, can't sleep, and at 2 a.m. you have the urge to vote, you can.
Suddenly the aha
what period-
moment.
So voting, right? Exactly.
Period
Voting
is it
will open.
people are able,
Go ahead.
I was just wondering what the period is that people are able to vote. Like, is it just
Yeah.
one day or a series of days or?
So it's a series of days, and voting will start on October 8th at 8 a.m. And then we'll run, again, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, until the close of polls on Saturday, October 17th at 7 p.m. And I just want to make a note that for the municipal election, it ends at 7, whereas most of the provincial and federal end at 8. So you lose that hour there.
Interesting.
So,
What is there a
7
reason
o'clock.
around there? What are the logistics there as to why the difference exists?
there is no logic to it. It's just because that's the way it was written.
Just the 8th at 8 and the 17th at 7. It's kind of poetic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So to be able to vote online or by telephone, what you'll do is you'll get the letter, and it'll have the telephone number, I think it's a 1844 number, and it'll have the internet website on the letter, and you'll either punch that in, and then it'll ask for your PIN that's on the letter in the bottom right hand corner, and your date of birth. And we put the date of birth in there in case the letter has gone to your old address, so that way somebody else can't use that PIN to vote. So after that, you'll see or hear the options for the candidate, depending on which district that you're in, and you just get to pick which one that you want to vote for. The system will then ask and say, okay, you chose, candidate X, are you sure? And you can either go back to your ballot at that point, or if you click, yeah, I'm happy, then the ballot has now been deposited into the digital ballot box. So once it's gone in, it can't be changed. And I have no idea how you voted. I do not get to see any of the results until the close of polls on Saturday the 17th. So everybody can be safely assumed that there is no idea how anybody voted. I can see that you did vote, but I have no idea how you voted.
I'm muting because mine. Yeah, go ahead, Peggy.
One question yesterday, I don't know if it was Trudy or who brought it up, about having to check if you're on the list to vote. But is that assumed because you're getting this PIN number, or do you still need to check if you're on the voters list?
If you have received the letter, you're on the voters list.
Okay, that's what I thought, yeah.
If you have not, then please call us and we'll add you onto the list and get a letter sent out to you.
Okay.
So the fact that we're doing this as a seniors lunch, I know that some of the issues that have been coming up more with seniors is, as everybody during COVID has kind of moved more to this virtual world, that's been really comfortable for some seniors and really comfortable for lots of seniors who have access to the internet, they have the hardware and they know how to use it, and it's seamless for some people. And for other people, that's not the case. Either there's barriers to, accessibility to the internet. And so I love it that there's this telephone option. And I'm curious to know more. I imagine if some seniors watch this video that they might be curious to know more about exactly. So from your description, it's not a person answering the phone, it's a computer, and then their selection goes by press 3 if you choose this person or that person. Is that correct?
Yes, so when you call in, it's going to be like trying to get a hold of your credit card company or your telephone company, right? So no, unfortunately you won't get a person, but you will get the option to select, press 1 for candidate 1, press 2 for candidate 2. And the average phone call takes about 4.5 minutes.
Okay.
So it's not a long process for you to vote.
Yeah.
And most of that time, you're just going to be listening.
Right, as it lists the candidate's name.
As it lists the candidates, it goes through everything.
Yeah. So will it ask you, like, what do you need to know? Do you need to know what district you live in, or will an assumption be made based on your PIN number or your identification?
So yes, based on the PIN number and the information that we have on file, it will automatically generate the proper district for you. So
Okay.
you don't have to figure out if you're in District 2 or if you're in District 4. You don't have to figure out where the boundaries are. We've already done that for you.
Okay, great. Good to know. So it might be something that if seniors are uncomfortable doing that automated process on the phone or uncertain about buttons, et cetera, that we could encourage families to help their loved ones to vote if they need help with that part.
Absolutely. It's totally available for folks to help out with their parents, right? Again, it's not a difficult process. All you need is a touch-tone phone, and if for some reason you're still somebody who's got one of the old rotary dial phones, your kids will have a cell phone, and that'll work. Right? You can ask your grandkids; they'll help you out.
That's right. I'm laughing. That was my next question because we don't have cell service where I live, and we have a wall phone that I wanted to get with the old rotary, but I couldn't. It has buttons, but it has a different kind of, it doesn't have a tone. It has, some buttons have that tickety tick sound, but I think your system would work with both. Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it would.
Okay,
right?
so you don't.
So, yeah, it would just be the rotary phone, the old style rotary phone, that it wouldn't work. But I think most of those, I know that my parents still have one in their house, but they do have a couple of push button phones too.
Cool. And then online, I imagine it's probably an even easier process in some ways because you have the visual as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So the online is pretty much the exact same thing. It'll come up, it'll look, once you log in, so you'll get a welcome screen, and then there'll be like a little security thing at the very beginning, just to make sure that you're not some sort of computer trying to access the system. So if you can't read the letters on it, just click the picture and it'll generate some new letters. So you'll just type those in, type in your PIN and date of birth, and that'll bring you directly into the ballot, and it'll look exactly like a ballot. And you'll just select one, your choice. It'll come up to the next screen saying, hi, you've selected candidate X. And once you click continue there, once again, it has dropped into the ballot box and can no longer be changed. If you didn't like your initial selection, then you can go back to the ballot and make a change as well. Make the change there. It'll ask you to confirm it again, just to make sure that you vote for the right candidate.
Excellent. So that sounds pretty straightforward. I'm going to give out your phone number again here, Blair. So I think you said 902-295-3658. So if anybody's watching this and has questions or wants help or advice or whatever, then you can call. I'm kind of curious to ask sort of a deeper question, like a more philosophical question. I wonder what your thoughts are around the fact that so much stuff is moving virtual. Do you think that there's any nostalgia or anything lost by this change in voting practice?
There's a little bit that's lost, probably more from the candidate's point of view and maybe in some of the anticipation on election night. So, excuse me, what used to happen is that, all the individual polls would report. So you'd get results kind of trickling in and slowly adding up throughout the night. So you could see a couple of lead changes, you could wonder if somebody was going to take off, just have a huge lead, or, was, you could watch kind of your little section and see how folks had voted. So those results trickling in and that slow excitement building as you got closer and closer and closer, that's kind of, that anticipation is kind of lost, because now I'm just going to have results and it's going to be like, well,
Instantaneous.
here, and all the decision is made. So there's none of that anticipation and build up, and watching it slowly come up. Now, on the side of it working on the elections, that anticipation, that build up is just, it's a whole lot of work on my end, right? Because I'm the guy, I've got people answering the phones, then there's people returning with all of their supplies. We're usually still in the midst of counting ballots at the returning office as well. So there's 7 different things going on at the same time. So for me, it just makes it a lot easier and a little more calmer on election night.
Wow, that's fascinating to hear you describe that, because I think there's some tactile experience here when you think of movies or growing up as a child, like, yeah, the room and the paper and the pen, you almost picture like all these tick marks, and as you say, the anticipation growing. So all that happening from your side of the equation. But I'm also thinking on the other side of the equation, and this is just, we could say this about anything in our lives these days, but I'm thinking about the experience of teaching the next generation to vote and what that means, and the fact that it's an outing. So I'm imagining like my father taking me, to the school and showing them, we wait in this line and then you go in here and you get to go, and it was all like, there's this secretive box and you have the right to do this and this is why, and then you go out for ice cream or whatever afterwards. So it's almost like a very kind of poignant moment in a family or in a society. And so I wonder if you have any thoughts around that we're losing these in-person rituals in so many ways. And I wonder how that might relate to elections, how that might relate to how we feel about who represents us, et cetera, et cetera. Just thinking really abstractly about this.
Right. So there is, again, that teachable moment. But again, folks now are so used to doing stuff online. So even though you have voted online, it still carries that same weight, right? And you do have to go through that process with your younger kids as you bring them up, saying, this is actually important, right? And it's just that we have made it easier now, right?
It's a different
accessibility
moment.
is a big thing. And part of the challenge is voter turnout is down from times past. So if we can make it easier, if we can make it more accessible, so that people don't have to hop in the car and drive to get somewhere, because unfortunately folks are a little busier now. So
you made some great points there.
Yeah.
Which causes me to wonder, with the accessibility issue, that's true. And so it's creating a different kind of teachable moment. And when you said that votership is down, is that true for the municipality of Victoria County as well? Like, what is that looking like for our population here?
So around here, I think we were running about 50% in the last municipal, which is about what's expected.
Okay.
All right. So municipal tends to be on the lowest scale, even though the municipal council has probably the most impact on your day-to-day life. A provincial tends to be running that 50 to 60 kind of mark, and then federal is in around about 2/3, so 65, maybe 70, depending on who's running for prime minister.
Interesting. And do you have any stats around locally here, what ages tend to vote more or less, or any of those type of stats?
I don't have actual stats, but what tends to happen is that the older that you are, the more prevalent you are to vote. So it tends to be a lot of seniors, folks in their 50s. That's where most of the votes come from. But again, you still see folks in their 40s, and I've registered probably 4 or 5 new 18-year-olds. So that's a good sign in itself, right? These folks are calling me saying, hey, I want to vote. So don't disparage about all of the young kids at this point.
Right. Is there any good resources that you might have either on, in your mind, top of mind now, or something that perhaps you could pass on to me that I could share publicly about the importance of taking part in municipal elections and maybe how to motivate young people to stay involved? If you think of anything.
Yeah. So I know that the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities did a thing on their website. It was kind of like, what's it to be a counselor, right? So what are those kind of roles that actually take place, or what you actually have to do as a counselor? And I think that the role is probably poorly understood, because it just seems like there's not a whole lot that you do. You show up to a meeting once every 2 weeks and you make some decisions on some stuff. But the decisions that actually take place in council chambers are extremely important, because the municipality runs a lot of the services. So it's your fire station, it's the police, it's the garbage pickup. How much are you paying in property taxes, right? It's a lot of these other little services that folks don't see, right? So, if you're making budget decisions, you got to decide what roles and what priorities that you're going to put on. And, municipalities are always kind of challenged, because there's 100 different things that everybody wants to be done. But, in reality, we could probably only do 5. So somebody's got to make the decision on which 5 things get done.
Yeah, excellent. Well, could you tell us a bit more about what the job of being a counselor here in Victoria County looks like, in terms of the job description, how much time you might put to different aspects of the job?
That would be a great question. I have no idea.
Okay.
Right? Because I've never been a counselor.
Right.
Right? My job is to run elections. And so my job is to make sure that we get a decision on who's going to be that person making all of the decisions. Now, again, I've looked at being a politician myself, and I would just unfortunately tell people exactly what I thought, and that probably wouldn't go well for me. So
Maybe it would, Blair. I would encourage you to consider that. So I understand, maybe you could give us a rundown here in Victoria County about the different districts, and I know there's multiple places where there's no voting needed. The counselors is continuing. What's that looking like? What's the overview?
Yeah. So in Victoria County, we've got 4 acclamations. So basically, they were the only person to put their name forward. If you don't like them, then in 4 years' time, you should put your name forward, and that way there's a challenger for them, and they actually have to think about what they're going to do for the next 4 years. So District 1, Paul McNeil, he's acclaimed. District 3 here in Bedeck is Bruce Morrison, he's acclaimed. District 5, which is basically Bullendry with Fraser Patterson, he'll be back. And then the north of Smoky into Ingonish, or the best part of Ingonish, with Larry Daphne, he's going to be staying as well. So what we get down to is the races. So we've got a race in District 2, where we have, that would be like Middle River, Forks, Bedeck, kind of everything north of the RCMP station, in that north of the overpass, and it kind of goes down. Yeah, no, just that section there. And then, so that is Perla McLeod, who's the current counselor, and Norman Matheson is the challenger.
So two candidates.
So, yeah. In District 4, I think it was Merrill who decided not to run again. So we have two people there. And District 4 contains everything south of Smoky, all down through like English Town, Tarbet, all along St. Anne's Bay, Ben Brea, and basically every Bedeck past the museum. So it's a fairly large district.
I live in that district, and what a diverse area and geography, and there's a lot of little spread out communities in there. I think that would be difficult to
There's all
represent.
kinds of little spots spread out there. So we have Rosella Bourne and Barbara Longva. Those two folks are running there. In District 7, which is the northern part of Ingonish. So the exact line is somewhere in around the United Church in Ingonish. Seascapes Cottages, I think. So from there all the way up to Effie's Brook. So that encompasses all of Neils Harbor, White Point, New Haven, and there's 4 candidates running up there. So that one's going to be an interesting race. We've got Jeffrey Gwynn, Jackie Organ, Lawrence Seymour, and Kim Stockley. So the 4 of them are running there. And then we have District 8, which is everything north of Effie's Brook. So Aspie Bay, Cape North, Dingwall, Bay St. Lawrence. But interestingly enough, not Mead Cove. Didn't figure that
Yes,
out.
I'm looking at my map here in my office, and yeah, you're right. It's strange because you can't get at Mead Cove from the other side either. So it must be difficult to be in Inverness County and yet this kind of island in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, I was surprised at that one myself. So the 2 folks running up there is Norman McDonald, who's the current counselor, and the challenger is Johnny Buchanan. So one thing I do want to mention in regards to voting, while you can do it, or while you should do it from home, if for some reason that you want, well, no, if for some reason you need to come to a physical location, there are a few polling stations set up.
Okay.
Yes. So there is one set up for Cape North at the Cabot Fire Hall. So for District 8. There's one at the Neils Harbor New Haven Fire Department for District 7. And then Englishtown Community Hall, just right by the ferry, for District 4. And then anybody in District 2 would just come here to the municipal office at the old courthouse here in Bedeck. So
Well,
I set
yeah,
those
that'll
up.
be so interesting to know the numbers after the fact of who uses those in-person stations.
I'm going to be very interested to see who uses them and how many. I'm not expecting many, but I could be completely surprised. I don't know what's going to happen. This will be the first time I've done a completely electronic election. So I don't even know what to expect.
So at those polling stations, is there someone there then to assist you to basically make your electronic, cast your electronic ballot? Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
so
so there'll be somebody there to help you in case you misplaced your letter, or for some reason, you know, internet sucks that day, or, you know, phone isn't working. So there'll be somebody there to assist you with voting. But again, you'll just be voting on a laptop, the same as if you would be from home.
Yeah. I imagine that still might be kind of comforting for some people. At those stations, then they'll be open from the 8th to the 17th.
No,
correct?
so the stations are only open on election day.
Okay.
All right. And so they are open 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. on
Okay.
election day only. So
October 17th. Great.
Is that information on the, I got my letter, but I didn't look through it all, but where those stations are, like, because yesterday someone mentioned to me the St. Anne's Bay United Church Tea Room, but you mentioned Englishtown Community Hall, which is, I mean, we're basically next door to each other. So how would people find out if they
So
did
that
need
information is on the letter.
Okay.
It's about halfway down the page,
Okay.
on the front page. I believe it's posted to the website, or if it isn't, then it will be shortly,
Okay.
where the physical locations will be,
Okay.
so that you can check. But again, I encourage you to vote from home. So that way you have no concerns about your safety. And again, it's just much more convenient for you.
And when you're talking earlier about people physically going to vote, you know, driving, I remember as a kid, my father, he was a big liberal, he would drive people, and there was always a bottle of rum under the seat to encourage whoever he was driving. And it wasn't just him, there was other people too doing that, but to encourage them to vote the right way.
Oh, absolutely. And unfortunately, I don't have that kind of supply of rum.
Yeah.
So, and anyway, that should be the candidate's job, not me, right? They need to bribe me here, right?
I love that story, Peggy. That was what I was imagining too. Those family stories about voting.
Actually, my father served on council many years ago. So.
How old would you have been when he was on council? Like
he was on council? Oh, I probably would have been, I don't know, 9, 10, 11, something like that. I was fairly young. So, I mean,
yeah.
that's 50 years ago. So
yeah.
Over 50 years
and
ago.
What would be your memories of like what dad had to do, or like what stands out for you in terms of how that affected your family life? Or
well, the thing is, I didn't grow up here. My mother and father split when I was 4, so I wasn't really around so much during actual campaigns. Just occasionally I would happen to be here on voting day or whatever to see. But as far as, you know, what went through, and of course as a kid, even if I was here, I probably wouldn't pay attention to it anyways. You know, like kids like that age, you're probably not interested. But
yeah.
And I used to hear him tell stories too about, you know, driving people around and that sort of thing.
He was a storyteller.
Yeah.
So your sense is that he made himself available to the community, like he was social that way.
Yeah, he did. And back then council was larger, I think, than it is now. Because I have a picture that was in the Victoria Standard years ago. And it seemed to me there might have been like 12 people or more. I know it was larger than what council is now. They cut down the numbers, but yeah, no, he enjoyed, and I think he always had some, I think he only served 1 term, but there was someone running as well. So I mean, he wasn't that acclaimed or anything like that. So, but yeah.
4 years is a decent term in that role. For some reason, it seems longer than in federal government. To me, I don't know why. Is the councillor of District 3 always the warden because of that district? Oh, okay. Maybe you could explain a little bit about that to us.
So what happens is, and how council picks the warden is, once council meets for the first time after the election, they decide among themselves who gets the warden's job. So they will vote themselves who's going to be kind of the warden and the kind of the leader, you know. So it's decided amongst the councilors once they have been elected.
I did not know that. That's a big piece of information for me today. Thank you. Yeah, fascinating. Mm-hmm. And what opportunities do voters have to hear from the candidates in this election?
The best way is to probably reach out to the candidates themselves. Right now, I know that most folks have a Facebook page up. So, you know, you could go through that, read kind of what their plans are. Their information would be there, so that you could like call them. I think a lot of folks, you know, a lot of folks are reaching out to the electors, sometimes by phone, sometimes by social media. Other times it's actual door to door. I don't think there's too much of that taking place, the door to door this year, just because of, you know, COVID needs no explanation at this point in time,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So folks are working on getting out. I know that some of the media has been in touch with me to try and get a hold of them. So I'm hoping that CBC will do something, and there might be some stuff in the post as well.
Okay.
So I'm hoping that, but again, those are beyond my control.
Right, you're just influencing it. I did hear Wendy Berkfeld interviewing. I think she's going district by district for CBRM in the evenings.
Yes.
She's doing on Main Street, having all, and they have sometimes 6, 7 candidates in some of those districts, don't they? Yeah, that's quite a big election.
CBRM, it's been interesting because particularly just for CBRM, they've had probably 5 or 6 people that aren't running again. So their council will change significantly
Maybe a whole
this
new
election.
flavor.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, wow. Wow, so I'm actually surprised. Is this different than other years? I know the campaign trail is obviously so different, but is there normally sort of an event that all the candidates would represent at? Is there, like, how is this different from other years?
Again, it depends on kind of what's organized out in the community, and kind of what organizations may want to try and organize a debate. Something that we saw, something like what we saw last night, but in the U.S., but with much more decorum.
Yes, much more.
Yes. So I think we may have lost a little bit of that, but I think the candidates are trying to do the best that they can right now.
Yep.
And, you know, you still see signs out, you still see advertisements, and a lot of stuff has started to move towards the Facebook and Twitter and all of the other social media platforms.
Interesting. So putting on my seniors safety coordinator hat again, returning as I do each day at my desk here to this issue of how is this access to information or lack of access to information due to everything being virtual, how does it disproportionately affect seniors? And so I know that there's an awful lot of seniors in Victoria County that don't have access to Facebook, either because they don't have Wi-Fi or they don't have the hardware or they don't have the knowledge of how to use Facebook. So that's interesting for me as well to take note of how that lack of access to the candidates in an in-person format might skew the connection between some of the community members and the candidates that they're voting for. But if I'm hearing what you're saying, would you say that it's fair to say that it's a good idea to encourage people to reach out to their local candidates and take that initiative if they have questions on their mind?
Absolutely. It's always a great idea to find out about you know, the folks that you'd be voting for and, you know, making decisions on that represent you. The nice thing about Victoria County, though, is that it's a lot of small communities. So folks know everybody, right? So it shouldn't be too hard to reach out. Most folks will have, you know, a connection in a way that, you know, or somebody knows them, you know, a friend of a friend, right? So, you know, folks, it won't be hard to get a sense of who the candidates are, especially for the longer term residents. You know, I'm sure everybody just knows everybody.
I'm smiling because I'm a come from away, 15 years now, but I do recall the frustration of everyone just knowing everything. And it's like, how do you access information? Like, how do you know that? And yeah, so I think that's something to be considered too, again, about, you know, disproportionate access to information. But so do you hope that next year that it sort of, well, I guess maybe you could report after the fact. How did things go? Did it work better than normal? You know, what would be your hopes going forward as we hopefully move beyond these kind of COVID social distance times?
Yes, absolutely. I'd love to come back and just tell you what the experience has been, because I'm not 100% sure of it myself. I have worked several provincial elections and the federal one, and you know, there's always a base. Like I can call Halifax if I have some problems. Here, it's pretty much just me. So there is some background support from Halifax, but it's limited. And so, you know, I'm the guy in charge and running it. And so that means I'm the person who has to organize everything and make sure that, you know, I remember to put the little poster inside of the bag that has to go up that day.
Yeah, exactly. Well, on that note, that inspires me to thank you not only for participating in this virtual seniors lunch today, which has been great. I'm actually fascinated by what you had to say.
Sandra, can I just ask him one question?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
please do.
In the future, do you see the possibility that this may be the way all elections are handled? Like, you know, by phone or over the internet?
So as I look out at the municipal level, I think it's probably the way that it's going to go. All right. On the provincial level, we're going to probably have paper for probably the next 2, I'm going to say. And then at that point in time, it'll start to become a little more questionable whether it'll be still paper or we go to electronic balloting. The feds are even farther behind, and especially because they have such a massive area to deal with, because it's the entire country. They'll be doing paper for some time.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Peggy. Your enthusiasm is infectious and appreciated. And so again, thanking you for today, but more importantly, thanking you for this role that you've taken on. I can see that that your passion is actually, yeah, I don't think probably most people would realize that it's all coming down to one person. So on behalf of all of Victoria County, I'd like to extend our thanks to you to make sure that this goes smoothly and we hear in a fair way from all the candidates, and that the election process goes smoothly and the results, you know, come through as needed.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it. I'm having fun. I get to enjoy it. It's been wonderful. I've gotten to have to get out and explore some of the area and find some of the locations. So it's been great to drive around and just kind of figure out where everything is a little bit. But yeah, no, like I said, I'm having fun. I'm enjoying it. And, you know, the busy days start now and will run for the next probably 18 days. And then after that, then, you know, we'll sit back, look at the results, and then we'll know exactly what's happened 18 days from now.
Oh, fantastic. Who needs sleep, right?
Right? We don't need that.
Well, you're very approachable, Blair, and making something, you know, quite clerical actually really, really fun and interesting. So I hope people will reach out to you. And again, thanks for the work that you're doing and for joining us today.
More than welcome. Thank you for having me.